Today we're going to talk about direct and indirect questions, which is on page 35 in your green supplement book taken from Grammar and Beyond Level 3. But before we get into the book, we're going to do a quick warm-up. So we're going to start by talking about direct and indirect questions with noun clauses. And to begin, we have to know what a direct question is and an indirect question is. So I'd like you to take a look at these questions and tell me which one is more polite. I'm wondering if you could tell me the answer. I'm wondering if you will tell me the answer. Could you tell me the answer? Can you tell me the answer? Will you tell me the answer? Tell me the answer. All right. If you need to pause the video to think about it and read them again, you can pause the video now. But which one do you think is more polite? Hopefully, you can tell that this one on the bottom is more direct. This one is like an order or an instruction. And then this is the most polite question in this list. And then this one is definitely the most polite way to ask. Is there any difference in meaning between all of these? No, there's no difference in meaning. Tell me the answer has the same meaning or the same desired use as I'm wondering if you could tell me the answer. In both of these, I want someone to tell me the answer. We can see that there is a noun, tell me something. Will you tell me something? Can you tell me something? Could you tell me something? And I'm wondering if you could tell me something. So in all of these, we have a noun. And then, if we look, the top two have something different. Do you know what that grammar is? That is a noun clause. We have our keyword, if. We've got a subject and verb. So in our noun clause, we have this, it's like a question. We've been practicing this. It sounds like a question, but it takes our subject before the verb grammar, and we have our keyword. In this case, we've got noun clause inside of a sentence. I'm wondering. I'm wondering something. I'm wondering about something. So we've got our main clause, I'm wondering, and then we have our keyword, if, which tells us this is a yes or no question. Can you tell me the answer, yes or no? So we use our if word, or we could also say whether. You could tell me the answer. And the answer is still the plain noun, the object, the thing that I want you to tell me. But in this case, we use an indirect question to make it more formal. I'm wondering if. Instead of asking directly, could you tell me the answer, we are asking but in an indirect way. It's actually more polite because it's not a direct question. Take a look at the punctuation. Why does it change? So in some of these we have a period, and in some of these we have a question mark. Why does the punctuation change? Well, hopefully you can see that the punctuation changes depending upon whether it is a sentence, I'm wondering, or whether it is a real question, could you tell me? So in this one, I'm wondering is the main clause, therefore the period at the end is because this is a sentence main clause, not a question. All right, let's take a look at our book. In our book, it says noun clauses with direct and indirect questions. So we're looking at these direct questions with questions, or we're looking at these sentences that help us feel the question without directly asking a question. If we look at the rules right here, it says WH clauses and noun clauses with if, and noun clauses with if and whether can be used in direct questions or indirect questions. So you can use it in both. And here we have two different examples. We've got the first example. Do you know when New York got electricity? Excuse me, you can't see what I'm doing. Do you know when New York got electricity? This is our first question. And this is called a direct question because it's a real question. Our main clause is a real question, and so we take a question mark at the end because the main clause is a question. And then this part, when New York got electricity, what kind of grammar is this? This is a noun clause. It's a noun clause because it takes the place of a noun. Do you know something? And that something is when New York got electricity. So we have our subject, New York. And we've got a verb here, got. So we can see that this is working like a noun. Do you know something? Therefore, it's a noun clause because it's a subject and verb. We've reviewed this before. But our main clause, do you know, is a question. So we need the question punctuation at the end. We can also use this type of question in an indirect question. This means a sentence where the question is implied. We can feel that there's a question even though it grammatically is not a real question. Let's take a look at example number 2. I was wondering when New York got electricity. Again, we have our noun clause. It's taking the place of the noun. I was wondering about something. I was thinking about something. I was wondering is subject before verb, so it's a sentence. I was wondering. It's a sentence in the main clause, so we need, we need a period at the end of the sentence. So if the main clause is a question, you put a question mark at the end. If the main clause is a sentence, you put a period at the end. Let's take a look at 4.1. It says forming, so this is your form. For those of you who said that you wanted more focus on the form and how to make this grammar, in each grammar point there's something about how to form it, so we're going to look at this. Direct questions with noun clauses have question word order and end with a question mark. Okay, I would like you to add a note in your book right here. Question word order in the main clause. And this is important because the main clause has question word order, but the noun clause still does not take question word order because the noun clause is not a question, it's a noun. It's working like a noun. Let's take a look at our 3 examples here. We have example 1, example 2, and example 3. In example 1, do you know who invented the first calculator? Our main clause is the part that is underlined here. Do you know is the main clause, so we have to have this question mark grammar at the end because the main clause is our question grammar. And because we have this supporting do before our subject, we've got do question word before our subject. So we've got verb before subject, which is our question word order. And we use do because this is a question and we need it for our question support. And then if we look at our noun clause, we've got who invented the first calculator. Where's our verb inside of our noun clause? Our verb is right here, invented. Where's our subject inside of our noun clause? The subject is actually the question word, who, because it's the subject of the verb invented. So in this one, we have our keyword is our subject. And you can see that in your noun clause, you keep the same word order, subject before verb. So in your main clause, you need the question order, but in your noun clause, you do not change the rules that we have learned so far. Noun clauses take sentence word order. If we look at number 2, are you trying to find out if Edison was born in this country? Are you trying? This is verb before subject. It's our question word order in our main clause. And because we have a question in the main clause, we need the question mark at the end, right here. Because the main clause is a question, we need to punctuate with a question mark. If Edison was born in this country, this is our noun clause, and you'll see that we have a subject before our verb was born, and therefore it takes sentence grammar inside of the noun clause. The main clause has question grammar because the main clause is asking a question, but the noun clause continues with our subject before verb sentence order. And let's take a look at number 3. Can anyone tell me if Edison was born in Scotland? Take a look at the main clause. Does it have question word order? Now take a look at the noun clause. Does it have question word order? All right, if you have any questions on this point, please remember to write those down, or you can put a comment on the homework assignment in Canvas and I will see those before class. So you can either bring your questions to class, or you can submit them on Canvas so that I can answer them for you. Let's take a look at part B. It says indirect questions with noun clauses have statement word order in the main clause. So we're going to add that in the main clause. And they end with a period. Oops, this should be a small I, sorry. They also have statement word order, sentence word order in the noun clause, which is the same thing that we have been practicing this whole time. So the noun clause rules are not changing here. Please don't be confused by what it says. Maybe you want to make those notes in your book, because when it says question word order and sentence word order, it's actually talking about the main clause. The noun clause always keeps sentence word order. These are some common phrases, like I want to find out, I'd like to know, or I don't know why. So you can practice this type of indirect question with some of these. Can you think of any other common phrases that we might put here? Common phrases that maybe you can feel there's a question even if it doesn't ask a real question? There's one in example number 1 over here. I am wondering. It's a little bit hard to write with these pens. It's going to take me a minute to get used to them. I am wondering is another possible example. Or I have been wondering, or they were wondering. You can use it in any time, but this wondering tells us there's a question even though the grammar is not a question. So we can feel that there's a question in the sentence even though the grammar is not a question. I have been wondering what a patent is. All right, as we can see in example number 1, we've got this subject before the verb, I have been wondering, because this is a sentence, it's not a question. And because the main clause is a sentence, we use a period at the end and not a question mark. The main clause is a sentence, so we punctuate it like a sentence. And we can see here that we have our noun clause. Again, this is the same thing that we have been practicing with our WH noun clauses. I have been wondering something. So this thing is our noun clause. And the thing is what a patent is. Where's our subject inside of our noun clause? It's right here. Where's our verb inside of our noun clause? It's way over here at the end. I'm going to put another little arrow. Verb. And we have talked about the fact that in English you have to end the sentence with the word is. A patent is something, so we've got subject is, and then this what is actually replacing the object. And the whole thing is working like a noun, so the whole thing is a noun clause. If we look at example number 2, my group really needs to find out if the Wright brothers had financial support for their invention. My group really needs to find out something. And what is that something? If the Wright brothers had financial support for their invention. So we can see the dark part. This whole thing is our noun clause, and the underlined part is our main clause. Take a look at the main clause. Is this a sentence or is this a question? It's a sentence. My group really needs to find out something, or find something out. In this case, because the main clause is a sentence, you need the period at the end. We have to punctuate it like a sentence. I'd like to know is our third example here, so I'm going to put a 3 by it. I'd like to know if people need to get patents for their inventions. I'd like to know something. So again, we have our noun clause, and we've got our main clause. Let's take a look at the main clause, the underlined part. I'd like to know, is that a question or is that a sentence? I'd like to know. It's a sentence, so we need our period at the end. And then if we look in our noun clause here, is this sentence word order or question word order? Well, we've got our keyword and we've got our subject and then we've got our verb. If we have subject before verb, it's sentence word order. Again, in this noun clauses with direct and indirect questions section, and I got a little crazy, I moved around a little bit, maybe I'll tape it next time. In this section, noun clauses with direct and indirect questions, please remember that our rules about noun clauses do not change. Noun clause remains. Your keyword and a subject and a verb. You need your keyword and a subject and a verb. And sometimes, as we know, sometimes the keyword is the subject, but it does not work always. So most of the time you need another subject after it. But you definitely need your keyword and you definitely need a subject and a verb. And if the keyword is working as a subject, that's okay. Then you only have one word here instead of two. But remember, this grammar that we have been studying does not change. What we're looking at in this section is our main clause and how to punctuate it. All right, we're going to move back to our presentation slides. So we can look at a few different ways that we use these direct and indirect questions, and especially with the indirect questions, we often use it to make a polite request. It's not a question, so I'm not going to call it a polite question. I'm going to call it a polite request. If we look at our statement on the left over here, imagine someone says to you, leave. Well, that's very direct. It's quite rude. I hope you can feel that. Maybe someone says, they change it into a question, can you leave? Again, it still feels pretty direct. It feels pretty rude. Maybe that person is having a bad day. Maybe that person is angry. We don't know. But imagine you want to ask someone to leave, but you're not angry. You're not having a bad day. You just want to be alone. So you could ask a polite question, could you please leave? And if you really want to be polite, maybe you're trying to ask your grandparent to leave or your teacher to leave because you want to do the practice alone or something like that where you really need to be polite, you can change it into a sentence with some of those sentence phrases that we looked at in the book, and you can put your noun clause after it, which replaces this question. Could you please leave is a yes or no question. So we're going to use that question grammar that we learned about in our noun clause chapter. And because it's a yes or no question, we can put if or we can put whether. I'm wondering if you could please leave soon. Oops, and I have a mistake, so I'm just going to change it right now while we're here. Oops. Because it's I'm wondering if, we cannot have a question mark because the main clause is not actually a question. All right, again, I'm wondering is the main clause, so we must have a period at the end. Make the statement or the instruction, this part, which is just a direct sentence, into a question. So that's your first practice. Tell me the answer. You can feel that that's very direct. Help me learn more. Meet me in your office on Monday instead of Tuesday. Again, these are very direct. This is when you're giving someone an order. Pause the video and practice making those into a question. You could try just a normal question or you can try a polite question. And then after you come back, I want you to take that question and move it into a polite request. So you will need to use your noun clause grammar. As we saw in the previous slide, we can take a question, could you please leave? And then when we put the sentence words before it, the main clause sentence, we need our noun clause grammar. So that's what I'm looking for you to do. First, you need a question, and then you need to put the noun clause grammar here. So let's take a look at number 1 together. Tell me the answer. How can you make this into a question? Maybe you could say something like, could you please tell me the answer? And if I want to make that question into a polite request, we could say, I would like it if, or yeah, we'll say if you could or would tell me the answer, period. So we'll need this yes or no question grammar, or you might need a WH question grammar, noun clause grammar word here. So remember, right after this phrase, you need your keyword somewhere in here before your subject and your verb. Give it a try at home and bring any questions that you have to class.